with my faithful co-pilot, Alicia Backman-Bahari. How you doing, Alicia?
Oh, I'm well, Mark. And I see it still says future immigration lawyer, but for sure I am.
What?
I am an immigration lawyer already.
What? Actually, I was just gonna adjust that right now. Okay, check this out. I don't know if I spelled that right. Let's see. Oh no, I didn't spell it right. Just say. See, this is how we roll here, you guys. Okay, I won't be too goofy. All right, let's get Alicia sorted out here. Yes, indeed, we are back again for another live Q&A. And wow, there's been a lot going on, right? There's been a ton going on, and yes, and we've got people who are already jumping on and talking about the error that IRCC made yesterday with their express entry draws. We had fun with that. And then express entry 2.0, which boy, I'll tell you this. Let's see if we've got him here. This fellow right here. Come on, Minister Fraser. Seriously, he was. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the rationale was for posting. And for those of you who are tuning in late, I'll just, or at least are late to the game and weren't following what was happening yesterday, because all you want to listen to is Alicia, which is probably wise. Yesterday, 2 days ago, maybe it's 3 days now, I can't remember. But anyways, this came to our attention, which was a request for feedback on the process, the targeted draws for express entry. And so we covered a lot of information on this. And I went through this in detail, which basically I shared my views. If you go to our YouTube channel, let's see if I can find it here. Okay, so there's the mistake. This one right here. So the essentially Express Entry 2.0, the new changes. And so I went into great depth talking about this and exactly where they're going. And when they created this one right here, they provided a lot of leading questions, which basically said, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. Give us feedback on whether or not you think that's a good thing to do. So we'll see how all of this plays out, Alicia. But if those of you want to watch those, we're going to have a blog post that we're going to be releasing here shortly with our key takeaways. But at the end of the day, 2.0 it's coming. It is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. In the spring of 2023.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Anywhere from what is that, like April or March, the end of March till June 21st or something. So we played this game last year, didn't we? With when the draws for express entry were going to start again. But realistically, to have two draws back to back like this, a person asked me yesterday, Alicia, as to whether or not I was going to, whether or not I thought that there would be a round of invitations. And I said, based on what we know, I don't think so. And the person said, I've got a feeling that there's going to be one. I don't know, maybe he had some secret insider information or something. But yes, indeed, we did have yesterday the second draw in like literally 1 week
A
after back
week.
to back, right? And so
Yeah.
you can see yesterday 490, which is we're now starting to stretch down into a range that is, that's fairly, in range of I guess the stars, I guess we could say. So if we look at the previous rounds, we've got 490 here, and then they did two bam bam really quick, and
Yeah.
491. And really, Alicia, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. Why would they have done these back to back like that?
Yeah. And so this is why it's unusual that they did back-to-back draws, because if we look historically, I mean, COVID messed everything up. But if we look at what's been happening since they reopened draws back in last July, they were doing it very regularly every other week. So every 2 weeks on a Wednesday, they would do a draw. And then what happened, of course, they had the November 23rd draw. And for those of you who've been paying attention to what's been going on in the immigration world, and it is important to you know, make the point that it's not just immigration that TIER has affected. There's a number of different government programs that are affected by the rollout of the new National Occupation Classification Code, which went from a 2016 version to the 2021 version. And that all happened on November 16th. But because of that, when they did that November 23rd draw, there were a number of glitches in the express entry system because of the changeover from a 4-digit code to a 5-digit code. And because of that, they stopped doing draws for the entire month of December. And then they only started them up again January 11th. And we weren't sure, well, are they going to keep to their every other week schedule? But all of a sudden, because now they had no draws for 5, 6 weeks, basically a month and a half, they decided, I guess, to do another draw. So instead of having a 2 week interval, now they just had a 1 week interval. When they started at 507, that was pretty concerning because a whole bunch of people piled in to the express entry pool. And now there's a really robust number of people that have really high scores. And we were worried, especially because of the mistake yesterday when they did that second draw. It originally said 507 again. And we were trying to figure out, well, what in the
Yeah.
world? Like, how are they that many people that were at a 507 CRS? But in
Yeah.
fact, and Mark explains in his video, it was a glitch. It wasn't actually a 507. They amended the website. So when they first put it out, it looked like it was 507, but they
Yeah.
changed it, updated it, and it was indeed a 490. And we're still trying to sort out if anybody at 490 possibly didn't get an ITA. We'll see. There might have been some commentary about that. So, yeah.
There's the response. So Samir says no ITA for 490. So when you look at the rounds of invitations, guys, if we flip this up and we look at it, they do have a tiebreaker. So the question I have for Samir is, Samir, did you submit your profile after November 24th? So at 14:59 UTC. So basically, did you submit it after this cutoff date of November 24th?
Right.
So hopefully you can answer this, Samir. We'll see what Samir has to say about that. But he indicated, yeah, that he was at 490 and didn't get an ITA. And remember, the previous draw, we had lots of clients, and this is part of the other issues with the whole system, is that we had other clients on this draw right here that were over 507 that didn't get drawn. And I had one, and we were trying to figure out what happened. And so clearly, through this period of time, these glitches in the system caused lots of problems. And then essentially what they did here is they decided we're going to get back on track with our schedule and to do another draw, on the typical schedule where it would be, roughly speaking. So we expect probably the end of the month, and there's going to be in 2 weeks, maybe they will be actually 3 draws potentially in January. But what's surprising is that these are pretty large draws, and if you looked at the number of invitations issued and we go to the grand scheme of things, 27,000 was the largest one back in February 13th, and that was of 2021. Highly, circumstantial reasons for doing that. And then we've had some big CEC draws where they were trying to pump people through that were in Canada. But as far as no program specified, we're as high as it's ever been for this type of a draw. So just some food for thought for people that are tuning in. And we thought we'd just like to cover that just a little bit because we're in some pretty uncharted waters. So we'll see how all this unfolds. All right, let's see. We've got, so Shale says, all great news, Mark. Well, that's great. I'm glad, Shale, that you are an optimist. That's great. Let's see who else we've got here. Barry. Okay, Miles Barry says, hey, Mark and Alicia from Toronto, happy to announce I got my ITA with 994. We will definitely crank in some applause for our good friend Barry here. That is awesome. So cool. All right. And then Muhammad says, why no ITA for 490 CRS? Maybe we have another one, Samir and Miles. I don't know if Samir has responded. I don't see a comment from him yet, but I'm just wondering, you guys, if you were actually, if it was because you were after the cutoff, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Okay. Nicholas says, very exciting times for Express Entry. Hello to you over in British Columbia. And as always, you guys, make sure that you indicate in the comments where you're tuning in from, because we love to see where everybody is connecting in with us on these live streams. All right, let's see here what we've got next. Oh, Anastasia. You know what? I actually haven't connected with Anastasia since she's been in Lethbridge. So my sincere apologies, Anastasia. It's great to see you. Thanks for connecting in. You can see Manpreet, 941 got his ITA, which, yep, is you should be getting it at that level. I'm assuming, Manpreet, you've got a PNP attached to that one. And then Uzair says, good morning, Mark and Alicia, waiting for 486. Got work permit extended though. Good. That is really, really great. Okay, we've got Salim there, and and then Miles says 494. So, all right. Let's see here what we have next as we're zipping through here. See if there's any more that we can give shout outs to. Let's see. And Salim, it's good to see you as well. And Thisura, hey, great to see you connecting in. All right. And then Mahak says, I'm at 489. Can I expect an ITA in the next draw? Well, what do you think, Alicia? Think it's going to drop down that far?
Well, I mean, it's 490, so we're hoping that it'll drop down at least one CRS point, and hopefully they'll properly publicize what the CRS cutoff is next
Yeah.
time, so people don't have a little fit of frustration. But hopefully, right? If those CRS points are coming down 1 or 2 points, or maybe 3 or 4 points, I mean, 507 to 490 is a fairly large drop, but I think it's because people just didn't expect to have another draw so soon, so they didn't pile into the pool in the intervening week, right? So
Yeah.
that's probably why it was a bigger jump between the 507 to the 490. The tricky thing is now, if people are realizing, oh, I better get my profile in there, a bunch of people might pile in now.
Yeah.
So all you can do is make sure that your profile is correct, it's up to date, you've done your best. I'm sure that Mark has talked to you about this. We've talked to you about this. I've talked to you about this. Learn French. Everybody learn French, right? Apprenez le français parce que c'est important. We've got a whole bunch more of possibility of French being prioritized under Express Entry 2.0. So if you can start the classes, start practicing, start doing the things you need to do now so that you can take one of the TCF or TEF exams coming up, that will be something that probably will put you in a good position.
All right, let's jump in here and see what else we have. So Fernando says, hello, Mark and Alicia. I am in Winnipeg now, -10, no longer in Panama. Thank you so much for your help, Alicia. I will schedule an appointment to continue the process to PR. So that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely
Fernando
love
was,
that.
yeah, he was a great client and so happy that he got his study permit. So that's fantastic.
Very cool. Okay, let's see. So Omar says, my permanent application already approved. Portal Porta issued. I have submitted my picture. Oh, okay. I've submitted my picture and address, but now almost 1 month passed, but I haven't received my COPR yet. What should I do now? So common, Omar. This like anywhere up to 3 months we're hearing. So please
Yeah.
understand that the e-COPR portion is just, I don't know why it is. Maybe you can maybe you guys can post some Twitter feeds to this fine fellow here and ask him what's going on. But it really is massively disruptive for people when they can't get their PR cards and finalize their permanent residence. For up to 3 months is what we're hearing, right, Alicia?
Yeah. And they actually changed the processing times online, and it jumped significantly. It was kind of at 120 days and it went up to 171 in terms of processing days, I think yesterday. So there was a huge jump in terms of the posted processing times for finalizing PR and getting that PR card. And it's really tricky. I've had a number of clients actually. So the good news is they got notification that, yay, they got their PR approved. Most of them were under express entry in terms of the cases that I heard notification back from clients recently, but they're stuck in the same world where they have submitted everything that they should have through the PR portal, and now it's just radio silence. And so they don't know what to do. Can they travel? If they try to travel now, what's going to happen if they try to get back into the country? It's a mess. And so it becomes really complicated because these processing times on the back end are so long. So be really careful about that. If you can, please stay in Canada and just make sure that you get your PR cards and everything is properly landed, because the risk is that, if you have left the country, then it can mess things up on the back end in terms of your actual landing procedure. Getting that signed electronic confirmation of permanent residence is the moment that you actually become a PR and not before that. And so you want to be really careful to make sure that you are landed as a permanent resident. If you are stuck outside of Canada, though, and you have landed already, like you've got your e-COPR, but you don't have your PR card, you're stuck now in a world of having to apply for a permanent resident travel document, which might be delayed for months and months. So it's not a good option either. So book a consult if you guys have questions about what to do on the back end if you are in one of these situations.
And realistically, when it comes to that, it's pretty simple, guys. All you have to do is just, oh, wrong. That is the wrong one. Bear with me, you guys. You just have to go to our website here and you can see It's as simple as just clicking on speak to a lawyer. And then you can find Alicia right here and Chanel and Cedric and myself. And it's super easy to book consultations here. I've been jumping back and I have the minister on my wrong screen, Alicia. So he's throwing off when I want to pull him in to join us. He kind of throws off my my little stream deck here that I'm using. So, all right. Okay. I have to pull this one up. The Sura. He says, I finally got my PR application approved. Thank you so much for your advice and support throughout the journey. It wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for you. Well, oh my goodness, the Sura. He was a past Express Entry step-by-step course alumni. And he was the last one in his cohort, the last one in his group that had taken the Express Entry course here to get through. And I can't remember the Sura, maybe you can remind us, but I think it was the beginning of 2021, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit earlier. But I will tell you, Alicia, and guys, the links for the course you can register right now are all in the description below. But I will tell you that I completed, you remember I probably told you about the client that I worked with from Iran who had the issues with her daughter and she couldn't come. And anyways, we filed the Express Entry application for her back on November the 5th. And it was really painful because the internet was really slow and there was a big delay, but we got it through. Well, she informed me 2 days ago that she got her passport request. So, and she's in Iran, right? So like geography makes a difference. And yes, when over 35% of the applicants are coming from India, it's going to take you guys longer just because there's only so many officers. But in other regions where there are not as many applicants that are coming through, it's going to go faster. But to imagine 2.5 months, like that's really, really, yeah, it's so hard because when I look at people who are waiting for their PR cards 3 months, you know, when they complete their landing here in Canada, like something's got to give. And we've also seen our spousals going really fast. Some of them are being processed in like 3 months, but yet you've got others. Another client, PNP from Saskatchewan. I'm meeting with her tomorrow because I have to make sure she still wants to even come. Who was in the U.S. She finally got her passport request, and this was over 4 years, Alicia. She was the last full rep that I brought over from my previous firm. So that's the world that we're operating in. So congratulations, Thesura. I'm going to give you a big applause because, yeah, and I know I've had you as, I don't know if I have Thesura up as one of my testimonial folks here. I used to have a whole bunch of testimonials up that we used to put up here. Maybe I'll pull them back up there. After people take the course, then they always leave nice comments and things. And Thesura, you had, you'd left a nice review there. We keep evolving with everything we do. So congratulations. We're really, really happy for you. So that's fantastic. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so Among here says, does the immigration plan PNP numbers indicate all the Express Entry related PNPs? If not, what's the percentage that's associated with Express Entry? So in the context of a provincial nomination, yes, those are PNPs. And maybe, Alicia, while you're answering, I'll just pull up the levels plans and we'll just show people what Amongst Us is talking about here. So
yeah. So every year, the immigration department is one of the federal government departments, and it has to justify, okay, what is their plan? How many people do they have as a target in terms of settling new Canadians in Canada, and from what category? And so they have released that plan, and it's been out for a while now, and everybody's had a chance to take a look at it. Or if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, it is interesting to go through and break down, well, historically, we used to have a few more people coming through the sponsorship categories, and now that has been shifting and the trend is continuing to go through the economic categories. And so most of the applicants now predominantly are coming through Express Entry, federal high skilled, through the economic public policies, like the temporary public policies that we had during COVID, and also through CEC and PNP. And so this is where they have the breakdown of what they think the target, the low and the high range would be for processing applicants for this year, and then they project it into the future. So if you take a look at the provincial nominee program, keep in mind that we have a number of provinces and territories in Canada, and each province or territory has basically a quota. They have a certain number of applicants that they are allowed to nominate under their provincial programs. many provinces have multiple streams, but they have a target number. In Alberta, for example, it's 6,500. And so every year we can have different programs in Alberta, but the total number of PNP nominations is not going to usually exceed the 6,500. And overall, you can see what the target number is for PNP program nominations overall throughout all of Canada, 105,500.
Yeah. And so amongst us, the question that he had asked here is if the numbers on the levels plans, when people are drawn through express entry stream, if those numbers are a part of the provincial nominee number quota here, or whether they're a part of the federal high skilled quota here. And the answer is PNPs are allocated through here. Express entry is just one tool to navigate these other programs, but generally speaking, the express entry streams are all still within the 6,500 quota that the provinces are given. And so they fall under this category. And you guys can see for 2023 right here, if we go up 2023, you can see that the targets that, that they're shooting for, federal high skill is your Canadian experience class, your federal skilled worker, and the federal skilled trade programs. And so there's 82,880. Now remember, they can go as high as 88,000 if they wanted to. And I guess theoretically they could even exceed that if that was the case. But generally speaking, their target for this year for, the general express entry folks is 82. And the PNPs are forming a large portion and will continue. Next year it kind of levels off so that it's supposed to be just about the same. But you can see here as we go through this, and then the year after, PNPs continue to be just slightly higher than the regular streams. So yeah, remember, if you're looking to increase your chances of immigrating to Canada, sometimes you really need to look outside the provinces of Ontario and British Columbia, where the vast number of immigrants go.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay, we'll just throw in a couple little miscellaneous ones. So Muji says, can you please tell me till when can CRS will be 469? What do you think, Alicia? I'm going to let you do the prognosticating because I told people yesterday that I didn't think there was going to be a draw, and so I'm already my ability to soothsay is not very good. So what do you think? Think it'll
Well,
ever drop down to 469 with, and I'll qualify this. So this is with no program specified draws. So straight up human capital. Do you think it'll ever get down to 469 again, where someone without any connection to Canada and a CLB9 and master's 3 years work experience and, and 29 years old or less, that's what you need, 469. I had a client today who's exactly there, 469. We submitted a profile. She's IT, software integration specialist. So maybe strategic draw, but anyways, what do you think, Alicia?
yeah, I'd say, because these strategic draws are going to happen, because we're moving over to this Express Entry 2.0, if you happen to have a national occupation classification code and work experience in one of those priority sectors that Canada is hurting to try to find workers in, then maybe you do have a chance, right? Because if they start doing targeted draws for occupations, then the CRS, it will matter within that group of applicants. But as long as you're kind of at the higher end of the group of applicants that they pull in a targeted draw, you're going to have a way better chance. And this is going to change kind of the economics of how they, or the allocation of how we think about express entry. It's not just a straight CRS score anymore. Now it's basically they're weighting things, and you have a much better chance if you happen to fall in one of the categories that they're going to be saying, we want to have, I don't know, somebody in construction, right? Somebody within the construction NOCs, we're going to do a targeted ITA for these 10 NOCs in construction. And if that's the case, then those people have a much better chance than everybody else. So just because you have a lower CRS score doesn't necessarily mean that all hope is lost. And this is interesting because yes, you can definitely try to increase your scores for language, and maybe there's something you can do to get further education. If you only have a bachelor's degree, maybe you can, from whichever country you're in, maybe you can get locally a master's degree that's going to equate to a Canadian master's degree, and that's going to bump up your education points. Maybe you have a spouse where you want to make sure that they can get their language or education up as well. But if you're in a situation where you happen to have an occupation that's going to be in demand, or maybe you've got French skills, then you'll probably have a chance. On a straight CRS, if we just had kind of the regular CRS, I think 469 would be a number of months if we got there, just
Yeah.
because of the significant backlog and delays in terms of we haven't been able to process people through too quickly, and that CRS pool is sitting at really high numbers.
Yeah. And the interesting part too, if we slide over here and we look at the most recent draw, so just yesterday, because only 1 week has passed since the last draw, this data in the who's in the pool is actually, it helps because you can see this is as of January the 18th. That is how many people are in the pool. Very rarely do we have the number of people that are actually in here on the same day that the round of invitations was actually extended. This is quite rare. Usually there's a 2-day gap. So we can see pretty closely exactly who was in here. So we can see, generally speaking, anyone over 600, there was really only 614 that came in. Now, who could these people be? Well, to get 600, you could be someone who is an executive with a job offer that gives you 200 points. But for the most part, when you're crossing over 600, it's PNP candidates that are getting those extra points. And then as you drop down to 501 to 600, even though the last draw, remember, was 507. So all of those people were stripped away. And so in the past week, yes, there could be more, but that gives a kind of an indication of how many people were actually in there from the 501 to maybe 506 range. So, so you can kind of see the rate at which people are piling in. And then of course, the big, the 491, which is all of these people have been pulled out now. So 3,384. So this is really an indicator of really where we're at. And it's more accurate and more timely than it's ever been before. So you can see what's happened in 1 week, where things are at in terms of people piling in. So realistically, there's, a little over 2,000 people that piled in, maybe not quite because this was 507, but, you can see there's probably at least 1,500, I would say, that all came in that were really above 500 since the last draw. Still kind of speculating, but they don't give us an exact breakdown. So, yeah, just food for people to kind of think about as they're going through this process. Okay, let's dive into a few more. Both Alicia and I have hard stops at 1, so we're going to probably end the live stream at 12:50 today. But yes, we've got lots of things to consider and think about. Okay, let's see what we have here. Who's next? Okay, let's ask a pure express entry question, Alicia, given the fact that this has really been what we're talking about today. So Sean says, can the funds in RRSP accounts be admissible for the settlement fund requirement for FSW applicants if the class of asset is cash or otherwise easily liquidable?
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on that? I got my own views on it, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So if you look at the completeness check and if you look at proof of funds, when we look at express entry, it does give very explicit direction in terms of what immigration officers are looking at when they're looking at has an applicant satisfied their proof of funds requirement. And they do say if you're in a federal skilled worker category, you have to prove proof of funds and you have to show that that money is accessible to you. And so take a look here. You want to have a letter from the bank that's showing not only your current bank accounts and investment accounts, also what your outstanding debts are. And then there's some details about what you actually have to do in terms of getting that letter from the bank and showing that you've had that bank account balance for the last 6 months. But they do give you other instruction when so this is the completeness check, and they give you some other instruction when you look at the proof of funds section for express entry. And yes, it should be money that is accessible to you. If it's tied up in, so an RRSP is a Canadian instrument that, depending on how you hold those funds, most of the time people are going to be pulling it out after they have retired, and then there's different tax rules. So take a look at how you're actually holding money in that account, but funds have to be readily available to you. And most of the time, if they're in an RRSP, there are specific rules about how you can extract money from that RRSP. So talk with your financial advisor and just make sure that you are able to extract funds. There's usually a tax penalty if you're taking funds out of an RRSP and you haven't hit the maturity date and you're not eligible in terms of having retired.
exactly. Okay, Manoj Kumar says, submitted my PR application with my spouse in November. My spouse's study and visitor visas were rejected in the past with new visitor visa changes. Could my spouse apply again while waiting? So this is kind of code, Alicia, maybe for all of the rumblings out there that saying they're doing away from the bona fide assessments, or at least that's the one of the proposals that IRCC has put forward to deal with this 450,000 applicant backlog that they're just not able to get through. And let's be real, like a lot of these are in certain regions in the world, and so they just don't have the bodies to try to process them all, and it's causing huge backlogs and problems with all the other applications, and it's really becoming an administrative nightmare. We would have hoped that IRCC would have been able to sort things out, but they just doesn't look like they've been able to do so. So he says we've got 2 prior refusals, a PR application in the queue. Can they apply again, Alicia? Is there anything stopping them from doing it?
So there's nothing stopping you from doing it other than I would want to know why. Why was your spouse's study and visitor visa rejected in the past? And have you addressed the reasons or the lack of temporary intent or whatever it was that was a problem in the prior applications? And you have to be just so careful to make sure that you are not misrepresenting when you're filing a subsequent application when you've had prior refusals. And the risk goes up if you didn't do those applications yourself. So if you hired somebody and you don't have copies of those old applications and you don't know what a consultant said or an agent or somebody else, then there's a higher risk when you're submitting a subsequent or a third or fourth application, because you have to be very clear about what you said in the prior applications and make sure that you're not misrepresenting yourself. So address those issues. I mean, I would never say put in a frivolous application where you can't show temporary intent, because what's the point, right? Like, you
Yeah.
show that you meet the eligibility criteria as much as you possibly can. For sure, make sure you're not misrepresenting.
Yeah. All right. Let's just see what we've got here. Next, Ida says, hi, Mark and Alicia. When they switch to targeted draws, is there still CEC non-specific draw on the side or not? And I covered this at length in my video. I can maybe tackle this one, Alicia. You know, ultimately, no, we don't know 100% what minister's going to do. I'm not going to pull him up again here because he makes it difficult for me switching screens. Anyways, if we don't know what Minister Fraser is going to do, but one of the things that we do know is that there are very clear indications within the, and let's slide over here to the actual, this report here, where they're seeking feedback, but they're also giving very clear instructions on what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. The reality is, as they're trying to figure out, as we zip down here, the basis for formulating the categories, they talk a lot about we could create this category, you know, based on key attributes of individuals. And they talk about when they're doing this process and they're evaluating it, they talk about the fact that this is going to be a little bit of an experiment. And I can't remember, it was a long article here, so I can't remember where the exact reference is. But essentially, this is a little bit of an experiment to see if it can help to meet local critical skill shortages across the country. And, you know, Alicia and I think right at the beginning of our practices, we started at a time in which there were some occupation-specific restrictions to some of the programs. And it's hard because the data they rely upon is always old, and it's really difficult to make it really current. And one of the biggest issues is that immigration is political, very political. And so individuals that have greater lobbying power sometimes have the ability to get their occupations on the list, certain industries versus others. And when maybe they're, you know, the data may not necessarily hold that out. So transparency is important. I know that in the report, the minister, they've confirmed that they have to, you know, provide a report on how they chose the categories and why they did what they do, you know, why basically the minister did what he did with the powers that he holds, and then report to cabinet. So that is a part of the, you know, the transparency and accountability. But still, you know, after the fact, after it's done, saying, oh, we did this and this is why we did it, you know, well, it opens the room up for, you know, for a little bit of undue influence. And so we're always a little bit concerned about that. But it doesn't matter which political party you have in, there's always going to be that reality. All right. So I personally think that they've indicated, you know, they would continue doing more open types of draws, but we'll just have to see. just have to see there, Ida. Okay, let's see here. What else we have? Okay, Mohammed says, my company offers 1 month paid vacation. Do you think this month would be counted as experience? It's kind of a little bit of a tricky one, Alicia, but
Yeah. So
what do you think?
the key, I think, in the phrase that you put there is that it's paid vacation, that you are still considered to be a full-time paid employee. Where I get really concerned about whether that month is going to be counted as work experience or not is in situations where people are not paid somehow for that vacation time. Because if you're not paid for that vacation time, immigration has a pretty easy argument to say that doesn't count as work experience. If you are being paid, then I think depending on the circumstances, you may have a stronger argument. So you've got to make sure that you show that that vacation entitlement was something that was in your contract or offered to you, and you're still a full-time employee or you're still a part-time employee, as the case may be. I'm not sure if you're inside Canada or outside Canada claiming work experience, but paid is absolutely essential. And if you have, you're an executive maybe and you have 3 months of vacation, that might be a hard argument. If you're 1 month, 4 weeks is quite a bit. Most of the time, if people take that not all in one chunk, it's a little bit easier for officers to kind of wrap their heads around it. So there's ways that you can think about how you take vacation, and making sure that you get a letter from your employer if there's any concern about that vacation to show that you were authorized, it was paid vacation, and you're coming back to work.
Yes. We've had lots of discussions over the years as I've spoken on panels with the head express entry officers, and as we've seen this evolve repeatedly. One thing we do know is that if you are unpaid, you're not going to be able to claim it. So once, how long can you have a vacation and still claim? Well, that comes down to us as immigration lawyers helping you guys when you hire us to help you with your express entry application, which I want to reiterate. I just had another discussion with Cedric today about people not realizing that, yes, you can hire us to help you. We're here to give advice, like to give information and answer general questions about immigration. And we do this, as you've seen, every single week. But the reality is, within our firm, some people don't realize that, yes, you can hire us as your representatives to help you prepare your application. And if you go to our firm and you look at our approach, you'll see that we're just a little bit different in how we do it. Instead of working through this administrative person or an assistant or a paralegal, you work directly with Alicia and I and Cedric and Chanel. And this is where we feel it's just different. And you can see our fees. Our fees are posted here for all of the immigration applications that we do. And we like to think that what we charge is pretty reasonable in the circumstances. But we love working in this model because it allows us the opportunity to sleep at night, right, Alicia? Because we know
Yeah.
that there's no middle person, and we have the ability to work hand in hand with you through a screen share. And I was just talking this morning with two of the clients that I had consultations with, and both of them have hired our firm to help go through their express entry process. But it's just so much better because things don't get missed when you have two people looking at it together and you're working collaboratively. So
Well,
absolutely love it.
and the thing I wanted to add to that too is that a lot of people, I have another client that I'm working with on a PNP application, and she said, I never would have considered hiring a lawyer because I don't want to lose control of my application. And the way
Excellent.
that we work is that you don't lose control of your application. You keep control of your application. I don't know your password. You don't share it with me, but you can screen share once you've logged in, and I will go through your application with you in excruciating detail, line by line, and we will make sure together that you are completely confident that it's complete and correct before you submit it. So that's
Yes.
how we work. You keep control of your application, which is really important for a lot of people.
Yeah. And the reality too is, with this process, we like to think that the final product is going to be as good as it can be. Now, obviously, we can't control the facts of your case or the circumstances or your employer's unwillingness to give you a perfected reference letter, but we sure do our best to try to bolster things and shore things up and help you to formulate your letters of explanation in a way that an officer is going to understand. And that's why we do what we do. And then sometimes we get clients who book consults with us, and what happens? Well, then sometimes we have to go to litigation, that route. And it's the same situation. You work directly with us when we are going through the process of filing federal court applications and appeals and things like that. So we're the full scope. We offer the full scope of support for you, and with as much or as little support as you need. And that's part of the reason why we also created the Express Entry course, and the other courses that we have in the Canadian Immigration Institute. One that I'm really proud of is our study permit course, which we just launched just recently, and that's an awesome one. And in here we have periodically master classes associated with it as well. But all of this is available for you: spousal sponsorship, Express Entry, the main ones, and the LMIA course. We're in the process of revamping that one as well. So all those resources are available, and yes, you can hire us at Holthe Immigration Law to help you with your immigration application. So so many people
And
don't realize that.
And Mark, I know we've got to jump off because we both have clients right away, but I did see a question from Leto there, and he was saying he's an international student studying while working in Canada. Will this work be considered as Canadian experience in the context of Express Entry CEC pathway? And I'm so frustrated because all these new temporary policy changes on study permits and potential full-time work, I can see it, guys. If I'm gazing into my crystal ball right now, I can tell you for sure there are going to be a whole bunch of people facing heartbreak about a year from now when they go to file their PR
Yeah.
application under Express Entry, and they realize they speak to an immigration lawyer, hopefully, before they file that application, and they realize that a whole bunch of what they thought they could count for work experience doesn't count. And Leto, no, it does not count. You cannot work as a student to get credit for Canadian work experience. It only kicks in as eligible work experience once you have actually graduated. So you have to complete your program of studies. Then you have to stop working entirely until you submit your PGWP. And only once you've submitted your PGWP application can you then claim full-time or part-time Canadian work experience. So be super, super careful with that. Please, please, please make sure that you are properly accounting for how many years, months, weeks of Canadian work experience you have, even though you may be authorized to work in this interim measure. And be really careful because there's a whole bunch of caveats about that too. There's a whole bunch of things where they say, well, you still have to be actively completing your studies. There's a whole bunch of problems with it, but make sure that you're not trying to rely on that as Canadian work experience until after you've graduated and you have that application for the PGWP submitted.
Yes. And I'll finish the last one here of the day. And thanks everybody for your questions. Remember, every Wednesday and Thursday, we do our live Q&As. But if you are asking a specific question that really relates specifically to you and is not of general nature and really is legal advice, we strongly encourage that you slide over, book an initial consultation. And then from there, we can decide collectively together if it makes sense for you to retain our firm. Sometimes the questions that we answer are able to resolve issues and people go off on their way, and we love doing that. And in many cases, people choose to retain us, to hire them to they hire us to help them with their applications. But this is something that just breaks my heart. I absolutely hate hearing this. So Shanaz says, hello, Mark and Alicia. Our consultant forgot to add Canadian education score, and our score was 479. Like, I'll be honest, I don't know how you forget to add Canadian education. Like, did they not just not include it? And after updating my profile yesterday, it's 509 now. So is there any chance to receive ITA in the next draw? Well, yes, Shanaz, there is a chance that you can receive it. But with our process, the way that we do this, like, I'll bet you any money, if you were watching and had a chance to actually look at what your consultant was uploading into your profile, there's no way that education would have been missed. Well, that is the process that we follow when we are working with our clients. We use Zoom or whatever file, video conferencing you feel comfortable with. We use that and we do a screen share and we look at every single thing together. And that's the difference. And that's what most representatives don't do. You'll fill out a questionnaire, they'll fill it in, they'll send it to you to review. And let's face it, even if you're looking at something that someone else has prepared, you're always going to miss something. But when you're looking at it together, building it out together, like, things are far less likely that things like this are going to happen. So any other thoughts, Alicia, before we wrap this critter up here?
I was just going to say, I feel like sometimes as an immigration lawyer, our job is honing the ability to ask the right questions, to kind of think about circumstances and ask those probing questions, because I can almost tell when something's, there's something that just, there's a thread that needs to be pulled because something else is going on and we need to address that in an application. So just make sure that when you're working with a representative that you're discussing all the circumstances that are relevant in your life because that's where things can go sideways. So just make sure that you're talking about it with somebody that you trust.
Indeed. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. Alicia and I are going to drop off to our next appointments, but it was great having you here with us another week. And remember, this is always, as always, this is sponsored by Holthe Immigration Law, which is our law firm. And it's all you need to do is just click on the link below and you're able to, we always love to start with an actual consultation. So it allows us to assess the situation and then determine where we go from here. And we're also really, really proud of our 4.9 rating that our clients give. And I usually tell people that if you see someone that's got a 5-point rating and they've got more than like 2 reviews, well, then don't trust them. Not everybody's going to be super happy with the advice that we give. And I've had people who didn't like me telling them they couldn't lie and cheat on their application. So they're not going to give me a 5-star review because I told them that show money is misrepresentation. So we'll leave that where it is. But yes, so we've got lots of people, Diego here and LTAB and Delando, and yeah, it's just wonderful clients, and we just have really great experiences with them. So, all right, thanks so much everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week. See you later. Take care, Alicia.
Bye.